based on the ancient principles and spiritual practices, manifest your destiny. Shows how the process of meditation can streamline our thoughts, our desires, our goals, and ultimately our life. Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's 9 Spiritual Principles will help us, ladies and gentlemen, to discover the spiritual awareness that is within ourselves, to trust ourselves, and to accept our worthiness, your worthiness, and to reconnect with the divine in the world. Filled with warmth and insight, this invaluable book will help us achieve our goals and take us to a higher level than we have ever dreamed. Ladies and gentlemen, change your life using the best-selling author Wayne W. Dyer's astonishing 9 Principles. And we begin a new series today. It is Tuesday. Thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. And you know what that means? Time to begin a new series in another incredible entry of the legacy of Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. This one, as you've seen already, entitled Manifest Your Destiny, the 9 Spiritual Principles for Getting Everything You Want. And in this series, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking about manifesting. Why? I think it's a very important subject that goes along with spiritual philosophy, which is my main focus here on the channel. And I think it's something that brings up certain principles, philosophies, and ideas for a new way that we can go about thinking about our life. Remember, change your thoughts, change your life, living the wisdom of the Tao. We went through the series of Wisdom of the Ages, and we have a great respect for Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's spiritual wisdom and insights. And so I think this will be a perfect addition to what we have learned and discovered so far on my journey here on this channel. Once again, I am no master. I'm just a spiritual seeker, a student who is on the path. Maybe not even on the entrance ramp yet to the path. But I invite you and anybody to come along with me in this journey as I continue to seek to discover spiritual philosophy, the wisdom of the ages, continue to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through a greater awareness and understanding of the nature of ourselves, spirituality, and reality, so that through this increased awareness, we can hopefully increase the quality of our lives and the lives of those around us. Now, this series and this book we'll be doing will be focusing on 9 principles that Wayne Dyer set up. And he says he set them up in order. There's an audio book that goes along with this entire, but the audio book is him giving lectures on these subjects rather than reading verbatim the chapters themselves. And so although I've listened to the audio book many times, I'm excited to go through and do this actual book itself, copyrighted 1997 by Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. And we will be reading for purposes of teaching and commentary and expanding the mind, so that once again, and through that awareness, we can increase the quality of our lives. Now, the 9 spiritual principles for manifesting your destiny, or I would just say creating a more spiritual, harmonious, aligned, you could say, with Source kind of life. Number 1, the first principle of manifesting is becoming aware of your highest self. And we'll get into that when we get into the first chapter, as well as each of these as we continue through this series. The second principle for manifesting is trusting in yourself, and trusting yourself is trusting in the wisdom that created you. The third principle for manifesting: you're not an organism in an environment. We are an enviro-organism. We are part of our environment. The fourth principle for manifesting is that you can attract to yourself what you desire. And coming to know that is key. The fifth principle of manifesting is honoring, this is very important, honoring your worthiness to receive. I mean, so often we see ourselves as unworthy to receive what it is that we would like to manifest for ourselves in our lives or create. This word manifest can sometimes throw people off, but it's simply creating from our thoughts and our intentions and our desires, from the world of waves to the world of particles. And this is how everything is created. We know this through modern scientific discoveries or ancient esoteric thoughts, which have been proven through modern scientific discoveries. Going from the world of waves to the world of particles, creating, manifesting. So honoring our worthiness to receive is the fifth principle. The sixth principle of manifesting is connecting to the divine source with unconditional love. The seventh principle is meditating to the sound of creation. Now, this is what Wayne Dyer was taught by his teacher. I believe it was Guruji. His name is in here, yes. Message from a teacher named Guruji. Sri Guruji instructed him. We will get into that here in just a moment. Hang on. Meditating to the sound of creation. I would ask you, what do you think, or what do you feel, what do you know is the sound of creation, ladies and gentlemen? The eighth principle, just as important as any of the previous principles, is patiently detaching from the outcome. So often we can be connected to the outcome rather than being in the process. This is something I've been coming to realize more and more for myself over the last couple of years, is this idea of letting go of results. The things, so often we strive to try to achieve some kind of end result. But if we were to be more focused and in the process, still with an idea of an end goal, but being detached really from an exact outcome, like I'm doing this so that this happens an exact way. But a lot of times the outcomes we get in our lives from the things that we're doing are not the way that we exactly expected or wanted them to be, and that can lead to frustration and struggles. And this cancels out so often the manifestation process of our dreams and our desires, because we're not detaching from the outcome and allowing God, Source, Tao, Grand Organized Design, God. We're trying to control that. And finally, the ninth principle of manifesting is reacting to our manifestations, whatever it is that shows up in our lives, with gratitude and generosity. Without being thankful, we cannot be in the state of harmony and connection with Source and be able to use our greatest natural ability. And we have learned so much on this channel, and if you're a spiritual seeker, then you have learned about the power of our minds. And it is the ultimate power that we have. And so now, with the 9 principles of manifesting laid out for us, let us begin on the introduction of Manifest Your Destiny from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. Publishers Weekly said it was refreshing, thoughtful, and well articulated. Well, I think Dr. Wayne Dyer is always all of those things. He begins by saying in the introduction here to Manifest Your Destiny, quote, "You have the power, ladies and gentlemen, each and every one of us. And I'll be paraphrasing as I read this, sharing my own thoughts and whatever seems to pop into my head, and I'll extrapolate on ideas. And so this isn't going to be an audio book. This is going to be me sharing and us learning together on this journey. So we have the power within each one of us to attract to ourselves all that we could ever want. Now, if you've never heard that statement before, you may think, ha, ha, that's ridiculous, and you may scoff at this remark. But the truth always wins. This is another great lesson that I've learned. The truth always wins. It just takes time to breathe. Sometimes years, sometimes a few moments, but it always comes to be apparent. Maybe sometimes thousands of years. The central theme of Manifest Your Destiny is just this, that we have the power within ourselves to attract all that we desire. And so this is the central theme of Manifest Your Destiny, which is unlike any book Dr. Wayne Dyer has previously written. He says, I have chosen to write about this subject of manifesting because I have been drawn to it. And for many of us that get into this spiritual, esoteric, philosophical, whatever you want to call it, this kind of study can be drawn to this idea of creation and manifesting in our lives what it is that we would like. Because, the goal at the end of self-help or personal development is to create a personal situation of happiness, contentment, or some sort of ability to respond to life, a response ability to go through life with some gusto, because we've created this ability within ourselves through practice. And so this whole idea often leads to the idea of manifesting. And so Dr. Wayne Dyer says, I have chosen to write about this subject of manifesting because I have been drawn to it, rather than because it is the next logical step in the progression of books that he had produced over the past 20 years, 2 decades, he says here. He says, quote, I seem to have been drawn to the subject by a force that will not allow me to ignore it. As I began writing, I felt a kind of humility. And I felt the same way as I began making these videos on this channel. I'm sure many people who speak or research and study great topics such as these have felt the same kind of humility, along with a feeling of arrogance, Dr. Wayne Dyer continues, about taking on this particular subject matter. These feelings created questions such as, who am I personally to talk about these subjects and try to teach about these subjects here on a YouTube channel? The same way Wayne Dyer felt these feelings that created questions such as, who am I to write about this capacity to manifest? And what do I even really know about manifesting in the first place? Isn't this territory reserved for divine beings, the greatest of masters, who might have a thought and instantly have that thought become a reality for them? Now, this is a level that very few of us would want to actually be at, because I guarantee there is very few of us that can actually control our thoughts to have, how dangerous would it be if all of the thoughts that you don't like to have became realities for you? Well, this is why it is important to be mindful and to consider and watch your thoughts and begin to correct and choose a new, it's like the train going by, and you can switch the little lever and the train goes on a new track. But I'm rambling again, and if you haven't been here before and you're joining us for the first time, thank you so much. I tend to ramble and get off topic, but seems to be what people enjoy. So, is this territory of manifesting and creating from the world of thoughts to the world of reality reserved only for the greatest masters, spiritual masters, and divine beings? Wayne Dyer continues, what gives me the authority to tell others about an ability that is unique to the gods? These questions swirled around inside me, he says, and I was motivated more by self-doubt than I would like to acknowledge, because this is something he teaches about in all of his previous works and books, is this idea of letting go of self-doubt and self-judgment. But as a foremost authority on how the power of your mind creates your world and positive psychology, Wayne Dyer himself still has these feelings. So we are all human. And to err, we know the statement. However, he goes, and then I did what I have encouraged my readers to do in my most recent book, Your Sacred Self, which we have yet to do on this channel. I banished all my doubts and began listening to the inner voices that kept telling me that I would receive the guidance that I needed. You will receive the guidance that is needed, ladies and gentlemen. We just have to learn how to listen, which is difficult. Very difficult. But we need to begin to banish our doubts and begin listening to these inner voices that keep telling us that we will receive the guidance when it is needed. Wayne Dyer continues, quote, and that I would not be alone in this project. In other words, he says, I surrendered and went deep within my own meditations, he says, and allowed myself to release all fear and doubt, simply to trust. A part of me, he says, knew that the ability to manifest into the material world from the unseen world of spirit is possible for every one of us. I believed this, he says, because of the words of the great spiritual teachers. All the great spiritual teachers encourage us to see ourselves as unlimited and to know that even the least among us, as one master once said, has the divine power of God available at every moment of our lives. Even the least among you can do greater things even than I have done. Will do even greater things than I have done. I forget the exact quote, but the interlinear would have many translations to that. So, but the Master, Jesus, whether it was an archetype or an actual being, character, but this wise master and teacher left behind many lessons, but a great one being, if you think of me magical and able to do miracles, even the least among you can do these things and even greater things. And so he's telling us that we all have this power and ability within ourselves. And this is echoed by many, many other great spiritual teachers or many, many other esoteric traditions, as is stated in Hermetics, the Hermetic philosophy from Hermes thrice greatest, or the Egyptian sage god Thoth, speaks of the same thing. And so, throughout countless ages of time, this sentiment is echoed throughout the wisdom of the ages. And so, this ability to manifest into the material world from the unseen world of spirit is possible for all of us. And even the least among us has the divine power of God available at every moment of our lives. But to actually write this in a book, Wayne Dyer says, and provide some spiritual principles, these spiritual principles that one must learn and master in order to do this, seemed a very daunting task indeed. It was at this time, as I was considering writing these principles, even though I had no clear idea what they were precisely, and in what order they should even be presented, he says that I received a message from a teacher named Guruji, to whom this book is dedicated. In this message, Sri Guruji, Shriguruji, Sri Guruji, instructed Dr. Wayne Dyer to listen to a tape on the power of manifesting and to practice in his own life what he was being taught, and then to present this manifesting technique to the world. So Sri Guruji was like, here, this is a great technique, and I would like you to present this to the world. In this message, Sri Guruji instructed him to listen to the tape and the power of manifesting and to practice it. He explained that the ability to manifest had been known and practiced by great sages and teachers in the East for thousands of years and has continued in much secrecy for centuries. He says, I listened with great interest and began to practice, just as they are presented in this book, the manifestation principles in his daily meditations. He says, I experienced astonishing results almost immediately, which reminds me of a great saying that Dr. Wayne Dyer teaches. I think it comes from A Course in Miracles, but it says, infinite patience is met with immediate results, because you're no longer impatient. So you have your result of comfort and peace. Infinite patience met by immediate results, but he began using these principles that were given to him by Sri Guruji, and he experienced astonishing results almost immediately. Dr. Wayne Dyer continues, I then began to include a discussion of these results in my lectures and to teach these principles. As he was writing this, he was continuing to go around and give lectures and speeches and motivation and spiritual insight to many at all the public events that he gave. And so a few months later, he says, after he began talking about these lectures and beginning to teach these spiritual principles, he began practicing these ideas in his life, and though without cataloging or organizing them in any way, he began to realize amazing, astonishing results almost immediately. A few months later, he says, I produced a compact disc, shows the date of this one, and also a cassette tape. How many of you, hopefully all of us here, actually no, hopefully there's some that are too young to remember what a cassette tape is. I'm just kidding, ladies and gentlemen. It hasn't even been that long. It's not like it's, anyways, titled, a CD or a tape titled Meditations for Manifesting. I listened to this now on Audible as an audiobook or a recording, and this is what got me into meditation, and this is how I meditate. Thousands of people began to use these principles and practice the manifestation meditation techniques, and the results have been mind-shattering. People who are using these techniques and sound meditations have written to Dr. Wayne Dyer from all over the world. The sound meditation described in this book, which he describes later as known as the japa meditation, has produced amazing manifestations in the lives of many people, and he has heard stories directly from these people of manifesting job promotions, having a baby, which was supposedly an impossibility, selling a home that had been on the market for years without any potential buyers, and many, many other stories of practical but incredible prosperity and healing that border simply on being nothing but a miracle. I know that these principles work. Their miraculous power is not based on a belief, ladies and gentlemen. It is a knowing. And what does a knowing come from as compared to a belief? Well, a belief is something that you have not had conscious contact with to have a knowing, and a knowing comes through conscious contact. And so, we can know about or we can know. But he says, I know that these principles work. It is not a belief, it is a knowing. And I know that each and every one of us has a divine power that has gone untapped, primarily because of our conditioning. And I love that Wayne Dyer says this, because he's not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, or he's just simply stating that it is because of of our conditioning that we leave these abilities untapped and honestly unspoken about and unmentioned and unknown to the vast majority of us. And so this is why I love doing this in an attempt to try to make these ideas more widely known for those that are interested, and maybe have an introductory version for those that weren't interested before but are now. And so he says, I know that you, me and you, and each and every one of us, ladies and gentlemen, if we practice these 9 principles studiously, can begin to manifest for ourselves virtually anything that we are capable of conceiving in our mind. And this has been a big theme on this channel. This idea of the power of our mind and our ability to use it to create for ourselves that which we desire. The problem can be, this will be a side ramble for me, is incongruency. When our thoughts are one direction and our feelings and emotions are going another direction, and then our actual physical actions are also going in a different direction, this can lead to very much incongruency, stress, anxiety, discomfort, a lack of harmony. This is something we really want to avoid in our lives, and I am unable to do so. My emotions and feelings go this way, and my thoughts are going this way, and my body's going this way. And I'm like, man, we need to create some, some congruency here. And this is why this is important, to help us get back on the entrance ramp to the path, wherever that path leads. Remember, detaching from the outcome. So I'm not so concerned with where the path goes. I'm really just seeking what we're all seeking, is a little contentment. Now, back to what was being said here by Dr. Wayne Dyer, that we have this ability to manifest anything that we are capable of conceiving in our mind. Dr. Wayne Dyer continues, quote, I am aware that entering this realm of creation and manifesting is like walking down an unfamiliar path. When you decide to enter the unknown, you obviously cannot know for sure what is ahead of us. He says, I ask you, therefore, to avoid cluttering this path with preconceptions. I like the analogy there of the path and then cluttering the path with all these obstacles, things you can stumble over and trip on and fall. It'll mess up our smooth journey on this path. Avoid cluttering our path with preconceptions and preconceived notions. Make an effort to read these principles and begin to apply them in your daily life without judging. Without judging them based on what you have been conditioned to believe about ourselves as a person who is only human and can't really do much to change anything in our lives, which is exactly opposite from the truth. But we have been conditioned to believe ourselves as a person who is only human and therefore is limited. Preconceptions will only serve to contaminate our manifestation and creation process, including our meditation process. But Wayne Dyer says it will contaminate our unlimited potential for manifesting our heart's desire. It will block the flow. What you desire is of central importance, ladies and gentlemen. Though you may never before have thought of desire or higher spiritual awareness as a compatible concept. Because that's another thing we're conditioned to believe, is that desire is terrible. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? Yeah, I don't know exactly where that comes from. But I mean, it is impossible to imagine a world without desire. To create is to desire. Oh yeah, the Buddhist philosophy that desire is suffering. You have less desire, you have less suffering, which is very true. But this doesn't mean we need to eliminate 100% desire. I mean, there probably would be no suffering if nobody needed anything or desired, but there probably wouldn't be very much growth either. But I also like what John Levy said, or Levi, on this week's video about growth. And he says we have also been conditioned about this idea. It's funny how conditioning's coming up as a theme, but we've been conditioned with this idea of continual growth. You must always be growing. And even I have said before, keep going and keep growing, which is good. But when it gets to a really large scale of continuing to produce more profits and, this idea of perpetual striving and never arriving and being where we are. I think of it like video games, like they're producing new video games so fast that there's not even enough time to enjoy the ones that are around. I often think of games that were around 15 years ago, and I still play some of them today. That's like, man, they just, this idea of continual growth and making new things better and more, and we can never be happy and satisfied where we are, can be a problem. And so I appreciated John Levy's perspective on that. If you didn't see his recent video, check it out. You don't have to agree or disagree with whatever he's talking about, but just good food for thought, good philosophy, and I love it. It's like this, we need to rethink this idea of perpetual growth. But with that being said, it is impossible to imagine a world without desire. To create is to desire. Back to the book again, quote, even if the wish to be desireless is a desire. So this is the great Zen teaching. The student came to the master and said, Master, how do I become enlightened? He says, well, you must relinquish your desire to become enlightened. And the master says, now go practice and do this. And the student comes back to the master and says, well, master, I have discovered that in my attempt to relinquish my desire, I am desiring not to desire. And this lesson goes in a circle. I forget what the master said there, but it was hilarious and awesome. And these are the kind of paradoxes that we can really learn from. But once again, even a wish to be desireless is a desire. So we cannot have no desire. The process of creating anything, ladies and gentlemen, first begins with a desire. Our desires, cultivated as seeds of potential on the path of spiritual awareness, can blossom in the form of the freedom to have these desires in peace and harmony with our world. And remember, the seeds that we plant with our desires take tender love and care, ladies and gentlemen, some TLC. They take cultivation. They take good soil. They need good nutrients, good fertilization. They need water. They need all of the elements that are necessary, metaphorically speaking, for their ability to blossom into the form of the freedom that we are seeking for, and peace and harmony within our lives. Giving yourself permission, ladies and gentlemen, to explore this path is allowing yourself the freedom to use our minds to create the precise material world that matches our inner world. Think of think of if your inner world is very contaminated, so to speak, or very tumultuous and all over, all over the place, and there's a lot of restless anger and struggle and anxiety. And now see how our outer worlds, our lives, reflect that of our inner worlds. It's an important thing to notice, a distinction to make. They're like, wow. We begin to realize that we actually have a role here in creating our lives, which is a great starting point, because once again, so many of us have been conditioned to believe that we have no authority and have no capacity and ability to have any role in the creation of our lives. But when we see that our lives, our outer worlds, is a reflection and matches, sometimes almost precisely, that of our inner worlds, we can begin to see that we actually do have a big role in the creation or manifestation of our world. Personally, see, I find it's very interesting, having learned from Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, that if you change the way you look at things, have a new perspective from a new awareness, the things you look at change, even though they're the same exact things. But for you, from this new perspective, from this new position, they're different. For somebody else standing next to you, they could still hate the dirt. But now, you love chopping wood and you appreciate carrying the water. Because before enlightenment, we're chopping wood and we're carrying water. It's necessary in life to do certain things that we have to do. And even after enlightenment, we're not just blissed out and like, we still have to chop wood and carry water. Difference is our perspective. When we have changed the way we look at things, the things that we look at and experience change for us. I'm loving this. Hopefully you're getting value as much as I am, ladies and gentlemen, and I know you are. And thank you so much for being here. I'd appreciate it if you'd share this with somebody who is like-minded. But giving ourselves permission to explore this path is allowing ourselves the freedom to use our mind to create the precise material world that matches our inner world. That inner world is the one which is the catalyst for determining our physical world experiences. We will have to abandon the idea that we are powerless and get over our conditioning to come to a new awareness that we have power over the circumstances of our life. But that, this takes a lot of effort. So, disclaimer, it's not the easiest thing ever, but it is one of the most worthwhile things ever. And it's free. Rather, there is no expenses necessary, which is wonderful. Which is wonderful. But hopefully this has been recording this entire time. Yeah, it says pause, stop recording. Okay, good. Always wonder that. Like, all right, 30 minutes into the video. Hopefully it's been recording this entire time. But, ladies and gentlemen, we will have to abandon the idea that we are powerless over the circumstances of our life, and we will need to shift out of the groupthink, the group mentality that says we are incapable of this ability to create our lives on purpose using the power of our minds and our desires, our intentions, and our focus. We will have to get out of this group mentality that says we're incapable of manifesting. Group thinking inhibits our natural abilities to co-create with Source, with God, our life as we desire it to be. I'll read that again. This idea of group mentality here is referencing how, society as a whole, or we have a large public understanding or agreeance that, the ability to create reality with your mind is shenanigans, and it's silly. Of course we can't do this. We're just out here, trying to, our furrows of worry in our bank account and the thrills and chills, it's just got to be real. But there are those that come back to us and try to remind us, say this is just a ride. But, once again, the famous mystic, poet, and philosopher, also comedian, Bill Hicks. But this idea of groupthink and getting out of the mass or the mainstream, the common understandings about these esoteric subjects and about your individual ability and powers as a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. And so let's let Wayne Dyer extrapolate on this idea. Group thinking, he says, and continues, quote, inhibits our natural abilities to co-create our life as we desire it to be. Examine the pressures and beliefs that we have bought into, which reflect the thinking of our immediate family, our extended family, our community, our religious grouping, our ethnic grouping, our educational or our business grouping, or any of a multitude of specialized labels and titles or groups of people. It's very interesting. When we can begin to determine the areas of our life that are jammed up with the teachings of these mindsets, causing our personal evolution to be slowed down because of what we truly desire or believe is impossible, or not getting any energy from our unique individuality. I think what he means by that is we've so bought into this conditioning that these kind of things are impossible for us, and too many of us have been taught that so much is impossible and you cannot do anything in your life, which is exactly the opposite. Once again, detached from the outcome. However, anything is possible. Like if you have told yourself that you cannot ever have enough money to have a new car, that's wrong. It's just totally wrong. There is a way for us to go about in our lives to create what it is that we desire, whether it be financial security or a list of a million other things. But we have to begin to release that belief that we have been conditioned with that it is impossible for us. Because if we believe, we have a personal knowing that it is impossible for us, ladies and gentlemen. See if I can fix that. Bloop. Maybe. Maybe. One sec. There we go. Not so blurry again. Not so blurry again. All right. Hopefully that didn't cut this into 2 videos. Now, co-create. When we see, it's this idea of the groupthink, or this limiting self-belief, limiting thoughts, causing our personal evolution to be slowed down because what we truly desire or believe is not getting energy from our unique individuality. When we stay plugged in, Dr. Wayne Dyer continues, quote, to group consciousness, we're really saying, I choose to evolve very slowly, rather than evolving at a faster rate than the group. And when the group sees this, they say, no, you can't do this. This isn't allowed. You're not allowed to, evolve at a faster rate than all of us. And then we get this fear of being kicked out of the tribe. And that's a subconscious survival instinct to not be an outcast. This is why we all hate feeling like we don't fit in, because it's a subconscious survival fear that if we get kicked out of the tribe, we're going to die out in the wild very quickly because we won't be able to make it by ourselves. We need the tribe to help us survive. But we have come very far since these subconscious survival programs running in our minds. And so now we don't need to be as worried about being kicked out of the tribe because we live, if you're in, I'm here in the United States. And so from that perspective, it's like we live in relative safety. I mean, unless you're in survival situations, but if you are, then you shouldn't be watching these videos anyways. But you get the point there. There isn't a tiger. The way I like to say it is like we're all living with this weird kind of background fear and this stress and anxiety in our lives, even if it's just about like getting paid in a couple days or something, and we're like have just a few bucks for the next 2 days, we have this feeling like there's a tiger like in the room that's going to get us. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, unless there really is, there isn't any tigers. Like, take a look around, double check, and take a deep breath and relax and realize metaphorically that there isn't any tigers. I like that one because it's funny, but it works. It like helps remind, oh yeah, we shouldn't have so much of these feelings that are subconscious routines for survival. But so being kicked out of the tribe, or when we're plugged into this group consciousness, we're saying that we choose to evolve slowly. Furthermore, the mindset that always gives us permission to be weak and impotent. We choose to evolve with a group, with the tribe, or with the mainstream rather than spontaneously, as your inner consciousness dictates. If we truly understand, Dr. Wayne Dyer continues, to manifest, if we truly understand the ability to manifest, we realize we can control the speed at which change occurs in our lives. A practicing mystic will manifest quickly because he or she is plugged into the world behind his or her own eyes rather than seeing the world as dictated by the eyes of the group and all of its forebearers. That was a very deep sentiment there. I'm going to read that one again. A practicing mystic will manifest very quickly because he or she is plugged into the world behind his or her own eyes, rather than seeing the world as dictated by the eyes of the group and all of its forebears. I'm very tempted to extrapolate on that. I'm going to highlight it here while we are here. On we are here. Just think of the time. You don't have to think about it. It is right here. It is right now, ladies and gentlemen. On a loop so strange. Said you never know. Will manifest quickly because he or she is plugged into the world. I'm going to circle that behind his or her own eyes rather than seeing the world as dictated by our eyes. So it's more of this idea of rather than what we see is reality and there's nothing we can do about it, it's more of like what is behind what our thoughts and our mental imagery and all of this that's going on behind our eyes is what is actually affecting the projection that we are seeing. It's a very deep concept there, and the master once again will do this from the opposite. Rather than seeing the world as what it is. Anyways, remember, change the way that you look at things, and the things that you're looking at change. As we experience, Wayne Dyer continues, quote, unplugging our circuits from those external forces, we will see the speed of our environment increase drastically. The speed of our evolvement, our evolution increase drastically. If you hear a voice behind your eyeballs that says, move forward, we will no longer wait for everybody else around us to make a move forward before we take the first step. You no longer have to run your suggestions through the group mind, which is meant to keep you safe and to discourage your individuality. Dr. Wayne Dyer says, I was able to begin my journey of enlightenment only when I fully recognized that the group agreement to keep me safe and to love me inadequately allowed me to seek something of a greater measure. If you wait for everyone else to learn how to manifest their heart's desires, you will not have enough time in this lifetime to even begin your journey. We must, ladies and gentlemen, unplug from our conditioning and know in that private space within us, behind our eyes, that we can and will take on the challenge of manifesting our destiny. And when you cultivate the inner conviction to manifest from the world of the unseen into the material world, you understand that there is a universal, grand organized design. There is a universal animating intelligence. There is a force. As Wayne Dyer describes it here, quote, there is a universal God force that is in all things in the universe. There is not a separate God for each individual, each plant, each animal, each mineral. They're all one. I love that he included the mineral kingdom there because we're walking all over the mineral kingdom and it needs some more respect, ladies and gentlemen. That's the silliest joke, but I love it. I love it. They are all one. God, therefore, the same God force that is within you, whether you call it God, whether you call it reality, universe, whatever you want to call it, the name is irrelevant because it is all names. It cannot be any one name. But for purposes of description, God, the same God force that is within us and everything else and causes us to think and breathe is simultaneously in everyone and everything else as well. It is universal. Thus, there is no place that it is not. Consequently, that which we perceive to be missing from our life also contains the same very same God force or universal intelligence that is within us. So that which we perceive to be missing from our lives, we are actually already at one with. We just need to align ourselves. You can see how a dissonance rather than a resonance or an unalignment can cause a separation of some sort of harmony or alignment with our destiny. That which we perceive to be missing from our lives is also contained within and contains the very same God force or universal intelligence that is within each and every one of us. Manifesting then, Dr. Wayne Dyer continues, quote, becomes a business of doing nothing more than bringing into form a new aspect of ourselves. You're not creating something from nothing, and we're not, creating something that doesn't already exist. It's just we are learning, quote from the book here, we are learning to align yourself, ourselves, with an aspect of our being that our senses have not known that they could activate. Now, this is a very important part of this understanding. You and that which you want to manifest into your life are one. As I wrote this, but that's a very deep subject, that last little bit there. And we will extrapolate on every one of these subjects as we go throughout this journey. In our new series here on the channel, Manifest Your Destiny, the 9 spiritual principles to getting everything you want by the incredible, amazing, and wonderful Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. And so, he says, as I wrote this book, I had the most peaceful experience of writing that I have ever enjoyed. And what I now hold in my hands, you can hold it in your hands too. I'll have a link below the video in the description box, link to the book, so you can get it for yourself to put it on your shelf so you can follow along in future episodes as we continue this series. Now, what we now hold in our hands or listen to on this video is the result of these 9 principles. So he manifested this book using these 9 principles, which is something I would like to do. I have many writings and ramblings that I would love to one day compile into an understandable book, but I've yet to use this technique to do just that. I have used these techniques. Like I said, I listened to the audiobook probably 6 or 8 times over the past 5 or 6 years. And I don't believe, I know that this works. And sometimes you find yourself in a position where you don't know what it is then what you desire. And so you have to take a break for a while and just be. Just be here now, as Ram Dass says. That's also an important practice. But, with that being said, as I practiced these 9 principles, I realized that I was manifesting a handbook for spiritual manifesting that anyone could pick up and begin to apply in the very moments that they were reading the words in this book. And I knew, Dr. Wayne Dyer says and continues, that I did not need to fill this book with hundreds of examples of these principles and how they had worked for me and many of my students as well as readers around the world. I knew, he says, that it was unnecessary to include a large number of quotes and affirmations as I have done in many of his previous books. This was to be something quite different. He says, quote, the key word I kept in mind as I wrote and allowed these principles to manifest through me was the word tight. That meant to me no extraneous verbiage, no case studies, and a minimum of quotations. I was dedicated to a style of writing that I characterized as say what you want to say it simply, say it directly, and say it from your heart, and resist any temptation to over embellish, over exaggerate, in the quotation of what he says here, any temptation to overwrite. And this is what I did, he says, in producing this book. There are no chapters, simply 9 principles. Each principle is explained in as straightforward manner as Dr. Wayne Dyer knew how. Each came directly from my heart, he says, and not my head. I have listened to my own guidance, and then I wrote it out. And when I felt that I had said what was needed to be said, and when I had provided specific suggestions for implementing these principles for us, I stopped. You can be, I am holding in my hand the tightest, quote unquote, handbook Dr. Wayne Dyer knew how to devise to teach the fundamental principles for spiritual manifestation and creation. He says, my internal knowing is that when you practice these 9 principles, you will be given guidance. We will be given guidance, ladies and gentlemen, and we will not be alone on this journey. And we will see our desires manifest as our destiny in our daily lives. You will be given the guidance. You will not be alone on this journey, and you will see your desires manifest as your destiny in your daily life. Finally, you will know that your job is to say yes rather than how. I send you all green lights. Wayne W. Dyer. I send you all green lights, ladies and gentlemen. And that leads us, that is a boom to the introduction from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer to manifest your destiny. The 9 spiritual principles for getting everything you want. And that brings us to the very first principle, becoming aware of your highest self. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Real quick before we finish, let's just do a recap of the 9 spiritual principles for manifesting your destiny. The first, becoming aware of your highest self. Number 2, trusting yourself is trusting in the wisdom that created us. Number 3, you are not an organism. In an environment, you are an enviro-organism. The 4th principle, you can attract to yourself what you desire. Number 5, honoring your worthiness to receive. Number 6, connecting to the divine source with unconditional love. Number 7, meditating to the sound of creation. The 8th principle, patiently detaching from the outcome, being detached from the outcome. And finally, number 9 is reacting to our manifestations in our life with gratitude, thankfulness, and generosity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a boom to the beginning of a new series and an introduction to Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Manifest Your Destiny. This is going to be a fun one, and I am super excited to continue, ladies and gentlemen, in the future, next time. But until next time, remember, seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through a greater awareness and understanding of the nature of ourselves, of spirituality, philosophy, psychology, the nature of reality, so that through this increased awareness, we can hopefully increase the quality of our lives and the lives of those around us. And remember to seek to discover the lost wisdom of the ages. Seek to discover the mysteries of our history. And also, finally, that keep this in mind, there is no way to happiness, because happiness is the way. It is what we must create the ability within ourselves to bring to life. So that all those things we've been telling ourselves, oh, I'll finally be happy when I get this much, or if I'm able to manifest it, becomes irrelevant. because then we are there. And then hopefully the entire journey is wonderful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I love and appreciate each and every one of you that spends time here with me on the channel. It means so much to me. Time and attention are our most valuable assets. Remember that. So spend them wisely. And also, with that being said, I have a link to this book in the description box below the video. There'll be an Amazon affiliate link, so I might make a few cents. But more important is physical copies. I love to have physical copies, ladies and gentlemen, because then you can really feel it, and you can begin to create a connection to it. I don't know. Some people like digital books better. I mean, do check out the audio book version of this because it's very different. That's why you should also get the physical copy because it's its own adventure, although both speaking about the same topics with different words. Anyways, a link to this in the description box so you can get it for yourself, put it on your shelf, and follow along future episodes, as well as for personal reference. I also have a link to my Etsy shop with my landscape paintings, CLC Paint. I also have a YouTube channel for that, CLC Paint, but I haven't done much on that for a long time. And what else am I missing, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, yeah. Also, I have a Patreon if you'd like to support the work that we do here with a couple dollars. Means the world to me. But more importantly, give yourself the gift of health. C60 Power is the ultimate antioxidant known to man. It is literally a Nobel Prize winning antioxidant. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I love and appreciate each and every one of you. And remember, until next time, be the change that you want to see. Be the example that you want to set. No, 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 no.